All right, I'm recording.
Okay,
I know. Oh, yeah, they would have paid. Right.
our topic is the dead zone. And we're talking about the effects of agriculture throughout the middle U.S. on the Caribbean, however you want to pronounce it, and how it has really wrecked the environment in the sea. It's called the dead zone. Go ahead.
Good evening. Welcome to New Orleans. I don't know if you knew this, but you are sitting within 15 minutes of one of the largest rivers in the world, the Mississippi River. Old Man River, Big Muddy. And it goes as far north as the state of Minnesota, as far east as the state of New York, as far west as Montana. And 100 miles from here, river miles, it empties its fresh water and sediments into the Gulf of Mexico. That's the end of Geography 101. Now we're going to go to what is in that water. Besides the sediment, there are dissolved molecules, nitrogen and phosphorus. And those, through a biological process, lead to the formation of areas called dead zones. Now, dead zone is a quite ominous word if you're a fish or a crab, even a little worm in the sediments, which means that there's not enough oxygen for those animals to survive. So how does this happen? The nitrogen and the phosphorus stimulate the growth of microscopic plants called phytoplankton. And small animals called zooplankton eat the phytoplankton, small fish eat the zooplankton, large fish eat the small fish, and it goes on up into the food web. The problem is that there's just too much nitrogen and phosphorus right now, too much phytoplankton falling to the bottom, and decomposed by bacteria that use up the oxygen. That's the biology. Now, you can't see it from the surface of the water. You can't see it in satellite images. So how do we know it's there? Well, a trawler can tell you when she puts her net over the side and drags for 20 minutes and comes up empty, that she knows she's in the dead zone. And she has to go somewhere else. But where else do you go when this area is 8,000 square miles big, about the size of the state of New Jersey? Well, you either make a decision to go further without much economic return or go back to the dock. As a scientist, I have access to high-tech equipment that we can put over the side of the research vessel, and it measures oxygen and many more things. We start at the Mississippi River, we crisscross the Gulf of Mexico, all the way to Texas, and even I sneak into Texas every now and then and test their waters. And you can tell by the bottom oxygen, you can draw a map of everything that's less than 2, which is the magic number for when the fish start to leave the area. I also dive in this dead zone. We have oxygen meters that we have to deploy offshore that tell us continuous measurements of low oxygen or high oxygen. And when you get into the water, there's a lot of fish, tons of fish, all kinds of fish, including my buddy here, the barracuda that I saw one day. Everybody else swam this way, and I went this way with my camera. And then down at 30 feet, you start to see fewer fish. And then you get to the bottom, and you don't see any fish. There's no life on the platform. There's no life swimming around. And you know you're in the dead zone. So what's the connection between the middle of the United States and the Gulf of Mexico? Well, most of the watershed is farmland, and in particular, corn, soybean rotation. The nitrogen that is put in fertilizers and the phosphorus goes on the land and drains off into the Mississippi River and ends up in the Gulf of Mexico. There's 3 times more nitrogen in the water in the Mississippi now than there was in the 1950s. 3 times. And phosphorus has doubled. And what that means is more phytoplankton and more sinking cells and lower oxygen. This is not a natural feature of the Gulf. It's been caused by human activities. The landscape is not what it used to be. It used to be prairies and forests and prairie potholes and duck areas and all kinds of stuff. But not anymore. It's row crops. And there are ways that we can address this type of agriculture by using less fertilizer, maybe precision fertilizing, and trying some sustainable agriculture, such as perennial wheatgrass, which has much longer roots than the 6 inches of a corn plant, that can keep the nitrogen on the soil and keep the soil from running off. And how do we convince our neighbors to the north, maybe 1,000 miles away or more, that their activities are causing problems with water quality in the Gulf of Mexico? First of all, we can take them to their own backyard. If you want to go swimming in Wisconsin in the summer in your favorite watering hole, you might find something like this, which looks like spilled green paint and smells like it, growing on the surface of the water. This is a toxic blue-green algal bloom, and it is not good for you. Similarly, in Lake Erie, a couple of summers ago, there was hundreds of miles of this blue-green algae, and the city of Toledo, Ohio, couldn't use it for their drinking water for several days on end. And if you watch the news, you know that lots of communities are having trouble with drinking water. I'm a scientist. I don't know if you could tell that. And I do solid science. I publish my results. My colleagues read them. I get citations of my work. But I truly believe that, as a scientist, using mostly federal funds to do the research, I owe it to the public, to agency heads, and congressional people to share my knowledge with them so they can use it, hopefully, to make better decisions about our environmental policy. Thank you. One of the ways that I was able to do this is I brought in the media. And Joby Warwick from the Washington Post put this picture in an article on the front page Sunday morning, 2 inches above the fold. That's a big deal. And Senator John Breaux from Louisiana said, "Oh my gosh, that's what they think the Gulf of Mexico looks like?" And I said, well, you know, there's the proof. And we've got to do something about it. At the same time, Senator Olympia Snowe from Maine was having trouble with harmful algal blooms in the Gulf of Maine. They joined forces. It was bipartisan. And invited me to give congressional testimony. I said, all I've done is chase crabs around South Texas. I don't know how to do that. But I did it. And eventually, the bill passed. And it was called, it was called the Harmful Algal Bloom and Hypoxia Research and Control Act of 1998. Which is why we call it the Snowe Breaux bill. So, the other thing is that we had a conference in 2001 that was put on by the National Academy of Sciences that looked at fertilizers, nitrogen, and poor water quality. keynote speaker was the former governor of the state of New Jersey. And there was no thinking she wasn't serious when she appeared at the audience, and I thought, surely she's looking at me. You know, I'm really tired of this thing being called New Jersey. Pick another state, any state. I just don't want to hear it anymore. But she was able to move the action plan across President George H.W. Bush's desk so that we had environmental goals and that we were working to solve them. The Midwest does not feed the world. It feeds a lot of chickens, hogs, cattle, and it generates ethanol to put into our gasoline, which is regulated by federal policy. We can do better than this. We need to make decisions that make us less consumptive and reduce our reliance on nitrogen. It's like a carbon footprint, but you can reduce your nitrogen footprint. I do it by not eating much meat. I still like a little every now and then. Not using corn oil, driving a car that I can put non-ethanol gas in and get better gas mileage. Just things like that can make a difference. So I'm challenging, not just you, but I challenge a lot of people, especially in the Midwest, think about how you're treating your land and how you can make a difference. So my steps are very small steps. To change the type of agriculture in the U.S. is going to be many big steps. And it's going to take political and social will for that to happen. But we can do it. I strongly believe we can translate the science, bridge it to policy, and make a difference in our environment. We all want a clean environment, and we can work together to do this so that we no longer have these dead zones in the Gulf of Mexico. Thank you.
I'm sorry that I misspoke a while ago instead of the Gulf of Mexico. I didn't mean that sea that I was talking about. But because I grew up on a farm in the Midwest, and our only fertilizer was cow, because we had manure spreaders and cows that gave us our fertilizer, we didn't have the problem then of the nitrogen and the phosphorus that went down the rivers. But when she told us about the great expanse of what the Mississippi brings, you understand that she was talking about tributaries all over. And there's farming all over that land. So that's why she knows that there's 3 times the nitrogen and twice the phosphorus that there was in the 1950s. And the low oxygen levels is why the poor fish and crabs and other aquatic animals can't live anymore. And that's why there are the dead zones. That blue-green slime that she talked about just on the ponds, it's on the rivers too. It's just that it moves faster and we don't see it like you do when it's a standing pond. We have it where I live. And I can't see any farming real close, but the pollution is there. Anyway, that environmental policy that she's talking about, I'm hoping it keeps expanding because she made this film in 2017, just a year ago. And yet she was talking about stuff that happened in 98 and 2001 in the government. part of the agriculture and affecting the Gulf of Mexico reminds me of the butterfly effect. When a butterfly flaps his wings, it affects things that you can't even think about. And that's why a farmer that plants his corn in North Dakota doesn't think what is happening in the Gulf of Mexico. And yet it happens there. I was very impressed with the action plans that she talked about and the things that they have put into effect. And yet, we know how slowly things like that are happening. They plan it, and it really doesn't happen as well as they want it to. Or we wouldn't have the dead zones there now, because these were planned in 2001. Anyway, about the Midwest not feeding people. I mean, it feeds us, but it feeds the chickens and the cows and the pigs. And that's why she's more a vegetarian than she is overall. And she's not strictly vegetarian, and most of us that try to control our consumption of meat aren't total vegetarians. But it would be nice to have a piece of fish once in a while. And once in a while, they can't get it out of the Gulf of Mexico anymore. Anyway, the ethanol that she's talking about, I buy gas. It says 85% for something. Is it 15% ethanol, 85% gasoline?
15%.
Yeah.
And then that one was raised, I don't remember if that was state or federal, 20%.
Yeah.
And use more.
Anyway, translating the science to this year, the marine life versus the ecosystem is really something that we should be concerned about. It's not something that we have obviously thought about. I mean, I never thought about there being dead zones of fish in the Gulf of Mexico because my cousins farm in South Dakota, and yet that's true. It might go into the lakes first, but then it drains off and goes into Mississippi and goes on down the streams. Anyway, we wanted to make sure that you guys knew that there was more to earth care than just recycling your plastic bottles. We want you also to know that you or me can say something to our congressman and maybe get a little butterfly effect going that will help us eat fish out of the Gulf of Mexico from now until our children can eat them, our grandchildren can eat them. We'd like there to be fish for us and crab legs and things like that that we've kind of gotten away from, or we get them imported from China. Yes?
So, it's not just farmers, you know, we all sit here except for you, you're a farmer. Okay, you're a farmer. But, you know, most of us here, we just have our little house on our little piece of land, and that's it. So, other than what we choose to eat, how are we affecting this? Well, if you fertilize your yard, you are contributing to that, because it's fertilizer that still eventually washes down sewers and washes down drains and eventually makes its way to the rivers.
Yes, and like I said, the little lake at Spring
I was gonna say, is, the state of Missouri has, the Department of Conservation, it will teach you how to till, for preventing erosion, preventing chemicals from going in, alternatives. I just read an article, and I guess they make their money more from selling their animals for breeding, but what they do is they have, I forget which type of cow they have, I think it was something I wasn't familiar with. But, the cows go out, they have alternate pastures, and they rotate their animals. So the cows go out, they eat the grass, the tall grass, so then they put the goats out. And the goats go out there and, crops are coloring the weeds of the cattle doesn't. And then they put out their pigs. And the pigs, they pull out the weeds. They like the weeds. They eat the weeds. And then then it lays for a while. And then
Then
they're
they
back
start
to
the process again.
And they don't have to fertilize. They don't have to reseed it all.
Those animals have been fertilizing it.
Yeah.
Just,
Well, that's right. They're adding.
That's
So much they advance.
Yeah, I also read or saw something a year or so ago about a guy out in the west, cattle rancher. And he developed this way to range where he never let his cattle just stay on a piece of property. He kept them constantly moving. He'd get out there on his horse or whatever, with the dog or however, and he'd keep them moving. He let them eat enough but move. And as they move, their hooves turn up the soil. So long before we were here ranching, we had buffalo. Buffalo were always moving. They'd stop, they'd eat, and they'd move on. And other animals like that, for safety, away from predators or to find more food. And they always turn next soil. And turning next soil kept the healthy grasses growing. So he doesn't have to fertilize. He doesn't have to plant any special grasses. He doesn't have to do anything. He just keeps his cattle moving. And he keeps them together in a hurry. He doesn't want to spread out because the more they stay together, the more they're turning that dirt up. And it's a totally different, really effective way, he said, to manage the cattle, and it's more environmentally. That showed you all that. Yeah. So there's ways to do it. Not just what we consider the traditional ways. There are different ways to find that work and work well.
And the Missouri Conservationist is a magazine that I read occasionally, and it's very informative, not just about the parts that they have, but about things like the rotation of the animals.
You can compost
Yeah.
your grass clippings if you don't just mulch them to start with, and when you go to the scraps from inside, and
You can find restaurants now that advertise grass-fed meat.
Yeah,
Sugar Fire has that.
And then also in the supermarkets, some of them will label grass-fed, whatever.
they do that.
So, you just have to, read and be selective.
I think at Sugar Fire, they even put must be a ranch down at Cape Girardeau. And they put down there, at least at one, the location's different. They all have their own personality. But the one that's out there in St. Charles off Elm, they actually put down that all of their beef comes from this farm, this ranch rather, in Cape Girardeau County. And they actually give the name of it and everything. And as you read the menu off the wall, you can see all that.
There's actually a farm up in 94. I have not been there yet, but I keep wanting to go there. And they actually raise, some herd cattle, chickens, pink pigs. Anyway, and they sell the meat there, and you can go. And it's, I believe it's all organic. So that's a good option. It's right there in our backyard. It's not very far away.
There are a lot of you guys that it's in your backyard.
Well, it's in all of it. It's
Yeah.
not that far even from
I
here.
know.
It's, 20 minutes. So it's,
you'll find it at the farmer's market itself,
yeah.
their grass.
What you don't want is you don't want food from the big corporations. They're the worst.
I grew up eating that organic food because Well, I didn't know any
Yeah, but
better.
it's
That's what it looks like.
We didn't realize how deprived we were.
Well, I
Actually,
mean,
how benefited we were.
we had our own chickens, we had our own ducks, we had our own pigs, we had our own cows. We didn't have goats or sheep. My mom was opposed to sheep because one got her down one time. She never wanted a sheep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
really aggressive.
so mutton wasn't on my list. But I gave a talk at the DAR last month because it was Farmer's Day or something like that. And what we grew and how it was growing up on a farm. Well, I didn't have cement to play on. I played in grass or gravel. We did have gravel. Oh, and we played with our animals, whether they were dogs or horses, you know, they were our playmates. Anyway, I got off the subject there. Go for it.
Do you know if any of the regulations that have been being rolled back have affected this?
No.
The, whatever she called that, or what she called it.
One, the snow grub.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's affected anything.
I know, I wasn't able to find anything more about it, but I also did research in those times because it was a tough.
Did she refer that at all to Canada when she was talking about some migrant? This is all an American thing. I mean,
Well,
Mississippi.
yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
And it kind of stops at the Great Lakes, I think. But our Great Lakes are affected too.
Right, which
I
then
mean,
would be affected.
they were talking about Toledo's drinking water. We know about Detroit's drinking water and their problems. So, you know, the Great Lakes are in there. And the Mississippi River is 10 miles from my garage. And it's where I get my drinking water. And where my sewer runs into. But anyway, that's beside the point.
I think most of us, Jan, collectively in general, are much better at small picture issues than big picture issues.
Yes.
You know, and if they go out on their front porch and suddenly their front yard is a green slimy swamp, they go, oh my God, what the hell happened here? I got to get on the phone, we got to fix this right away. But we tend to not think in terms of the comprehensive effects of a variety.
Yeah, 1/3 of the plant of the U.S.
And you know, for example, you know, the whole ethanol issue. You know, ethanol was at once upon a time was like going to be the answer to our prayers because it was going to get us out of fossil fuels. And well, yeah, but we didn't think about what else it might contribute to. So, you know, we tend to not look at the big picture very often. We can assume a lot of businesses, for example, still assume that anything that they do environmentally is going to cost them money. But now we're finding more and more businesses who, in fact, have been objecting to some of the, you know, drill baby drill stuff by saying, look, stop doing this because actually we are finding that renewable energy for us is actually cheaper than the energy we paid for before. So if we can think about farmers who need to make a living, and we don't want to leave behind, but we also need to think about the environment that we all are a part of, and we can think about the various impacts that various segments of that, of the economy and of our use of resources affect. That makes your brain hurt a lot sooner than just saying, you know, do this or do that. But I think that really is the answer for us in the long run, is being able to say, you know, look, we're all in this together. Everything we do affects all of us. How do we keep ourselves together, provide for all of us? All of us have to sacrifice in some ways, right, to contribute to the solution and have a comprehensive view of what we're talking about. But we tend to get mired in the sort of the partisanship and mired in our self-interest, and we lose that big picture, I think.
I just came back from France, and it surprised me, and it shouldn't have. The wind farms there were kind of like the wind farms in Iowa. I mean, they stretched on for miles and miles. Now, I'm riding by in a fast train that's 200 miles an hour.
You're creating the wind for the wind farm.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I helped the environment. Anyway, they do have, they don't have oil wells. They don't have coal. So they're relying on other countries to import things for them. But I was totally amazed at the wind farms.
So you're gonna do what John, yeah, you're gonna do what John's saying. One of the things that I've heard this many times, and I like to think about, if you think about the earth, we're all one system. You know, no part of the earth is separated from another part. It's one system. And if you think about our rivers and our streams, everything, that's like the arteries of the body of the earth, and everything flows through that. And anything that gets into any waterways is going to affect, could affect any place on the planet, because they are all connected. Who knows where, you know, plastic bag that goes in the Mississippi River could come out in China at some point, because it goes in that ocean, who knows what, or anything, it's all interconnected.
And that's why, like John said this morning, we're here to take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had that panel discussion in Presbytery yesterday too, which was kind of enlightening to me.
Yes.
One of the presenters, we had three, they're talking about faith and science. And one of them was talking about the fact that she thinks that because of our adult focus on just about anything but science, that's part of the reason that our children score so low in science and math in school and on standardized tests compared to the other developed nations of the world. And I think she indicated that it was like 17% of Americans do any kind of active focus on keeping themselves science literate. You know, we have it in school when we were young. Most of that we forget, and then don't make the effort to keep ourselves science literate. And so we get what we don't know.